If you frequently go outside at night, you may be well acquainted with the strong presence of wrongness one might randomly experience. When the night suddenly turns a bit too quiet or the shadows seem just a little darker than usual. Sometimes you might feel the predatory drill of a stare in your back. What if I told you these experiences were more than just paranoia caused by the dark shroud of the night? What if I told you entities exist, stalking you from all around, waiting for the right moment to pounce? During the last year of school, my best friend Jeremy came to live with us. His parents had moved away, and he didn't want to change schools just for the last few months of his final year. So my mother, being her kind self, offered him a place to live while he finished up. Jeremy slept in my room. It was fun, like having a sleepover every night. Sure, it was cramped and probably smelled like sweat and BO. But we were teenage boys. We didn't care. We used to go on late night walks. It was one of our favorite things to do. It actually started with my mom ordering us to use the public toilet. As you can imagine, our dumps did not offer a nice fragrance. Considering we only had one old toilet that had been in the house since it was first built, this wasn't an entirely illogical request. So, every second night we would put on our jackets and head down to the public toilet. Neither of us minded heading down there. The toilet was clean and scarcely used. Sitting next to them was a small playground accompanied by the picturesque waterfront. The area offered a sense of peace. Often stars punctuated the dark blanket above us, and a fresh breeze whipped our hair like cream. Eventually, we ended up going on night walks even if we didn't need the toilet. It was a nice reset after each day. We would head out, play some music, sit on the swing set, talk, watch stars, and eventually return home. Then one night, everything changed. We had both gone to use the toilet. Some clouds had built up, and gusts were swinging the trees harshly. The cold breeze gnarled at our bones. I was in the cubicle doing my business, and Jeremy was waiting for me out at the swing. A few minutes later, I heard 4 sharp knocks on the wall behind me, followed by what might have been a muffled giggle. "Screw off!" I yelled, thinking Jeremy was playing a joke. He didn't say anything back. Once I was finished, I headed around the back of the toilet block to confront him. Jeremy wasn't there. A wave of paranoia washed over my body. I turned to look at the swing set and sure enough, I could see his silhouette swinging idly in the breeze. I walked over and asked, "Were you just knocking on the wall?" He replied, "What? No. You joking?" "Nah man, I've been sitting here, it was probably a tree branch or something." Sure, there were some trees behind the building and a bit of a wind, but that did not sound like the normal clunk of a tree. "Quit playing, that wasn't a tree," I told him. "I'm telling you, man, it wasn't me." Then he giggled. "It was probably him." I was trying to play along with his little prank, but something felt wrong. There was an uncanny atmosphere holding onto me like a pack of weights. "Very funny, who's him?" Jeremy's grin grew. "Oh, you know. Bobo." At that moment, the world froze. The trees stopped swaying. The wind stopped blowing. All sound disappeared. I felt paralyzed. It was like someone had paused time. Then, as if my head was tied to a string, my neck slowly and agonizingly rotated toward the toilets. And then, I saw it. There, in the shadows I saw Bobo. It stood perfectly still, half concealed behind the toilet block. The street light cast a dim beam across its face and torso. It looked cartoonish. Gruesomely so. A real skin texture stretched over a head that was far too wide, its torso perfectly oval and limbs that weren't quite the right proportion. It wore a cap, an aged, checkered jacket and dark gray, stained pants. I was reminded of a plush toy that had been dressed up and then scaled up to the size of a brown bear. Bobo's pure black pupils burrowed into my soul. Its face almost looked like a child had sketched it. Exaggerated features with a flat expression, roughly drawn with black marker. But it was realistic. There was texture, shading and depth. It was real. I don't think my mind could have conjured up such an abomination of a being. I was held there for what seemed like an eternity. The thing's gaze sucked on my frozen consciousness. I saw the slightest smirk creep along its mouth. A giggle seemed to emanate from all around, a disgusting child's giggle. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished behind the wall. My mind was released. I was violently thrown back into reality. I panicked. Whoa, the hell was that? Did you see that thing? My heart felt like a piston, violently exploding with every beat. I turned to Jeremy, who was startled by my change in demeanor. He didn't share my panic. You good? Jeremy wore a concerned look. No. I'm going home. You seriously didn't see that? What did you see? Bobo, he responded, his concern turning into a smirk. You're a jerk, and I'm leaving. Before he could respond, I got up and headed straight for home. My speed walk evolved into a sprint as I passed the toilet block. The whole time, I was convinced that something was lurking just behind me, peeking out from behind every house and tree. My ears kept picking up that disgusting laugh, but I couldn't quite make out whether or not it was a product of my mind. When I finally made it home, I locked the door behind me and rushed past my confused mom straight to my bedroom. Still sweating, I crawled under the sheets, hoping they would protect me from the outside dangers. I couldn't find any trace of sleep, and when Jeremy came home, I didn't utter a single word to him. It took 2 years and 3 therapists to convince me my encounter was fake, that it was some sort of hallucination. And I guess it's the most logical explanation, right? Even so, the fact that this experience, which felt just as real as any other, was false left my mind in turmoil. Logically, it makes sense, but some part of me was never fully convinced. Some part of me always knew the truth. I couldn't tell you how I knew that thing's name was Bobo, I just do. That knowledge was inserted into my head the moment I saw it. The thing was in my head. Since then, I began to feel more and more mentally distant, like part of my consciousness was taken and has been slipping away ever since. As a kid, life felt full, now it feels dull. I guess that could just be called growing up, but I'm sure it's associated with my encounter. And how did Jeremy know its name? After high school, I moved away, but we stayed in contact. He's laughed every time I've brought it up and claims it's just a name he made up on the spot. Up until recently, I would have told you what all the therapists said, that it was a stress-induced hallucination, even if I didn't fully believe it. However, I am writing this now because it happened again. This time I know it's real. I was walking home from a late shift. Old, rundown shops loomed over either side of the street. Darkness enshrouded every shop window as I walked. It was then that I made out the silhouette of a person some 100 meters in front of me. The figure grew as they walked toward me. Soon, I saw it was an older man staggering in my direction. He was dressed in a tattered black coat, an old fedora, dark pants, and worn shoes that didn't match. The fedora covered his forehead and turned his eyes into dark voids. I figured he was homeless and planned to put my head down and continue walking. I was nearly past him when he spoke. "Hey, stranger, what are you doing out this late?" He had a rough southern accent. I stopped and looked up at him. He was of average height, looked rough with pale skin, a scraggly beard and a crooked, protruding nose. I felt bad for him, he looked like he'd drawn a few unlucky cards in life. "Just walking home from work, you want some change?" I responded. No, he shook his head, chuckling softly, "No need, you know it's fancy seeing you out here, huh?" "Don't worry son, you'll understand, all in due time." At this point, I was starting to feel uncomfortable. "You okay? Well, it was nice to meet you, sir, but I gotta get home." I nodded to him and began walking. "One more thing son," I paused. "Yes?" He giggled. "Ethan, how the hell do you know my dash?" He cut me off. A wide smile snuck over his face. "Watch out for Bobo." I froze. The world froze. Everything went silent. I had experienced this before. Just like 2 years ago, my head was forcibly turned. This time toward an old, decrepit laundromat. As my head slowly pivoted, the bulky shape of Bobo came into view. It stared back at me through the dark window. The creature looked exactly as I had remembered, real skin stretched over impossible proportions. Its crudely drawn face featured piercing black eyes, wide black lips and an uncannily realistic texture. The laundromat really put its size into perspective. I realized it was at least 8 feet tall. The thing's wide head was pushed up against the ceiling. This time, I was held in place for much longer. My head was completely locked up, and my neck muscles ached as I desperately tried turning away. Everything around me turned to a blur. Bobo had taken full control over my consciousness. It began to smile, wider than last time. Its face almost split in two, revealing a full set of sharpened fangs. Then, without moving a muscle, it spoke. "TME's almost TUP." The words came from inside my head, voice distorted, as if it hadn't quite perfected human speech. A soft giggle reverberated in my bones. All the while, its smile never faltered. Its mouth didn't even move. After that, it vanished, just like last time. But unlike last time, I wasn't hurled back into reality. Not with the same strength. I could move again, but I continued to feel distant. My mind had been thoroughly sucked on, leaving me feeling disconnected and feeble. I ran home after that, ignoring the man's hysterical laugh. I nearly tripped up several times. Completely out of breath, I scrambled into my apartment, locking the door behind me. Now I'm sitting on my bed typing this up. I still feel like my consciousness has been torn from reality, a hermit crab torn out of its shell. Jeremy just sent me a message, November 22nd, 2017, 23:35 and 8 seconds. Well, if this story gave you chills, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Wings of Words, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next horror tale. Share this video with a friend who loves scary stories, if you dare.